$2.5 million in retirement savings. It is a number that financial advisors like to throw away, and one that keeps millions of Americans up at night. But when you look at the actual data, the percentage of retirees who reach that level is so small that it is almost impossible to register on the chart. We're talking about a club so exclusive that 95 out of every 100 retired families in the United States are ineligible. And who is in and who is not telling the real numbers behind a story that most people planning to retire have never heard of. Before we calculate $2.5 million, the broader picture of the country's retirement wealth needs some context, because the baseline is lower than most people realize. Every 3 years, the Fed runs a campaign called the Survey of Consumer Financial, which remains the world's most reliable snapshot of household wealth. Their latest full data set was taken from 2022 and released in October 2023. What it reveals is striking. For households with heads between 65 and 74, the median net worth is about $409,900, which includes everything from home equity to investments to savings accounts. Once you look at households 75 and older, that number drops to about $335,600. Typical American retirees, right in the middle of the crowd, have less than $500,000 in their names. The average tells a very different story, and the comparison between the two numbers is more important than either. The average net worth for people 65 to 74 is about $1.79 million, compared with about $1.62 million for people 75 and older. The wide gap between the median and the mean exists because a small group of very wealthy households have pushed the average higher. Imagine you live with 9 friends in a room where everyone has modest savings, and then a $100 billion person walks in. The average net worth in that room soared, but no one became wealthier. Nationally, retirement figures are similarly skewed. Magnifying the actual retirement account balance makes the situation clearer. Vanguard publishes an annual report called How America Saves, whose 2024 edition, based on 2023 data, sets the average 401k balance for all participants at about $134,128. The median account holder, the person standing at the distribution center, was only $35,286. Even among participants 65 and older, the average balance was between $272,000 and $280,000, which sounds good unless you compare it to the $2.5 million target. Fidelity Investments, which manages about 23.9 million 401k accounts, has been tracking so-called 401k millionaires, meaning that participants have accumulated at least $1 million in a single account. Their 2024 report shows that this number has set a record of about 497,000 accounts, accounting for about 2% of all accounts they manage. For the IRA, Fidelity counts about 376,000 accounts of $1 million or more. That is what makes it interesting. If only 2% of 401k holders, the country's largest plan administrator, crossed the $1 million mark, the share of a retirement account that reached $2.5 million would shrink to well under 1%. Keep in mind that Fidelity's client base tends to be active savers through employer programs, which means that the broader population, including millions of Americans who have no retirement accounts at all, will show lower numbers. Now, look at the numbers you came here for, and the honest answer begins with an asterisk. No government report released an inventory of $2.5 million retirees. This statistic does not exist as a simple project at all. All we can do is combine multiple trusted data sources to get a strong estimate. According to the Federal Reserve's Consumer Finance Survey, the top 10% of American households hold about $1.9 million or more in net terms, while the top 5% hold about $3.7 million or more. A net worth of $2.5 million puts you between 90 and 95% off all households in the United States. Not just retirees, but everyone. Financial research from multiple sources shows that the proportion of retirement-age households with net worth of $2.5 million or more is about 3 to 5%, which is slightly higher than the general population, because wealth tends to peak between the ages of 65 and 74, after full career accumulation. Turning that ratio into a real number means starting with the size of the retirees. About 62 million to 65 million Americans are 65 or older, forming about 35 million to 38 million families. Apply 3% to 5%, and you'll get 1 million to 1.9 million homes. Of the tens of millions of retired families nationwide, about 1 million to 2 million have accumulated $2.5 million or more. This is the whole club. One difference that rarely appears in these conversations has largely changed math, and most people ignore it altogether. Net worth and investable assets are not the same thing. Net worth ties everything together: your house, your car, your business interests, your retirement account, your current savings. Many retirees keep a large portion of their wealth in a main building that has appreciated for decades. If you own a $1.5 million home in a coastal city and have $1 million in your retirement and brokerage accounts, you qualify for a $2.5 million paper club. But your actual daily life after retirement doesn't look like a person. With $2.5 million in liquid, available assets at all, buying a home is not easy, at least. Once the lens is narrowed to only investable financial assets, excluding home equity, the share of retirement age households at the $2.5 million level will fall to about 1 to 2%, which could mean only hundreds of thousands of households nationwide. Geography has also reshaped the meaning of the number. In rural parts of the South or Midwest, $2.5 million can be used as intergenerational wealth for decades. In San Francisco or Manhattan, some financial planners describe the same amount as just comfort. The family structure adds another layer, because a married couple with a combined $2.5 million is in a completely different financial position than a single retiree holding the same amount. And the data do not always draw that line clearly. A calculation of $2.5 million in spending helps to put that number into practice. The commonly cited 4% withdrawal rule is that you withdraw 4% of your portfolio each year for about 30 years, generating about $100,000 in pre-tax earnings per year. From a $2.5 million portfolio, put Social Security first, and what you see is a stable, upper middle class that by most standards is well off in retirement. Compared with the savings target recommended by financial planners, the standard guidelines require that by age 67, your final annual salary is about 10 to 12 times your final annual salary, which means a target of $800,000 to $960,000. For people with incomes around the median household income of $80,000 in the United States, real gold and silver, no doubt, but less than half of $2.5 million. And even that softer benchmark is out of reach for a lot of people. About 50% of American households are at risk of not saving enough to maintain their pre-retirement standard of living. According to research by the Employee Welfare Institute, half of the countries fall into this category, which means that if you even ask for about $2.5 million, your planning horizon has extended further than most countries. There is also a factor that quietly changes math, which standard wealth surveys don't always capture. For some retirees, especially those working in the government, the military, or traditional businesses, fixed benefit pensions still exist. A defined benefit pension is one in which former employers send them a lifetime check every month. Capitalizing this revenue stream means calculating the one-time amount needed to generate the equivalent, which for some recipients may represent an asset value of $1 million or more. These retirees may never show $2.5 million in savings in surveys, even if their actual financial situation reaches or exceeds that level. Survey data try to make this clear, but self-reported responses are not always consistent, meaning that the real number of retirees living a $2.5 million lifestyle is slightly higher than the wealth survey shows. This is where everything lands. The net worth of 1 million to 2 million American households, led by retirees, is $2.5 million or more, accounting for about 3 to 5% of all retirement age households in the United States, measured only by liquidity and investable assets. The figure is even smaller, estimated at 1 to 2%. A retirement income of $2.5 million puts you in a really rare field, but goalpost always feels like it is drifting further. Because it does so in some way, the rising cost of living, rising healthcare costs, and longer lifespans mean that 20 years ago it felt like a pile of outrageous money, now read as a baseline in some zip codes. The real payoff isn't so much touching a specific dollar number, as understanding your position relative to the overall situation and making a decision from that position. Whether your number is $500,000 or $5 million, the math holds only when you actually sit down and run it. If it works, subscribe. We break down the numbers behind personal finance, so you can make better calls when you still need to.